We continue with our Holy Bible readings to request divine union, theosis with Christ, part 19, chapter 21 to 24, Exodus of the Old Testament, and then we'll continue with Mark. Chapter 21, buying a servant. Now these are the ordinances you shall set before them. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and the 7th he shall go out free and pay nothing. If he comes in by himself, he shall go out by himself. If he comes in married, then his wife shall go out with him. If his Lord gave him a wife, and she bore him sons or daughters, the wife and her children shall be her Lord's, and he shall go out by himself. But if the servant plainly says, I love my Lord, my wife, and my children, I will not go out free, then his Lord shall bring him to the judgment seat of God, and also to the door or to the doorpost, and his Lord shall pierce his ear with an awl, and he shall serve him forever. If a man sells his daughter to be a domestic, she shall not go out as the maidservants do. If she does not please her Lord, who betrothed her to himself, he shall let her go free. But he has no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has dealt deceitfully with her. If he betrothed her to his son, he shall deal with her according to the rights of daughters. But if he takes another wife, he shall not deprive her of necessities, clothing, and marriage rights. If he will not do these 3 things for her, she shall go out free without paying money. Responding to violence. He who strikes a man and that he dies shall surely be put to death. However, if he did not willfully lie in wait, but God delivered him into his hands, I will appoint for you a place where the slayer may flee. But if a man acts with premeditation against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you shall take him from my altar, that he may die. He who strikes his father or his mother shall surely be put to death. He who curses his father and mother shall surely be put to death. Whoever kidnaps one of the children of Israel and overcomes and sells him, and he is found with him, let him surely die. If 2 men revile one another, and one strikes the other with a stone or with his fist, and he does not die, but is confined to his bed, if the man rises again and walks about outside with his staff, then he who struck him shall be acquitted. He shall only pay for his loss of time and for his healing. If a man beats his male or female servant with a rod, and he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. Notwithstanding, if he remains alive a day or 2, the Lord shall not punish, for he is his property. If 2 men fight and hurt a woman with child, and her child is born imperfectly formed, he shall surely be punished according to the woman's husband imposed on him, and he shall pay as the judges determine. But if the child is perfectly formed, he shall give life for life, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, hand for a hand, foot for a foot, burn for a burn, wound for a wound, stripe for stripe. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let them go free for their eye's sake. If he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let them go free for their tooth's sake. Owners of animals. If a bull gores a man or a woman to death, then the bull shall surely be stoned, and its flesh shall not be eaten. But the owner of the bull shall be acquitted. But if the bull tended to gore in times past, and it was made known to its owner, but he did not keep it confined, and it killed a man or a woman, the bull shall be stoned, and its owner also shall be put to death. But if a sum of money is imposed on him, then he shall pay the amount imposed so that he redeem his life. But if a bull gores a son or a daughter, it shall be done to him according to this ordinance. If a bull gores a male or a female servant, he shall pay their lord 30 shekels of silver, and the bull shall be stoned. If a man opens a pit or digs a pit and does not cover it, and an ox or a donkey falls into it, the owner of the pit shall make it good. He shall give money to their owner, but the dead animal shall be his. If any man's bull gores his neighbor's bull, and it dies, then shall sell the live bull and divide the money, and the dead bull they also shall divide. But if the bull was known to gore in times past, and its owner did not keep it confined, he shall surely pay bull for bull, and the dead animal shall be his own. Stolen property. Now if a man steals an ox or a sheep, and slaughters or sells it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox, and 4 sheep for a sheep. Chapter 22. If a thief is found breaking in at night, and is killed, there shall be no guilt for his blood. But if the sun rises on the thief, there shall be guilt if his blood is shed. However, he should make full restitution, but if he has nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the thing stolen from a donkey or a sheep is found alive in his hand, he shall restore double. If a man allows his field or vineyard to be grazed upon, but lets loose his animal, and it feeds in the field of another man, he shall make restitution from the best of his own field and the best of his own vineyard. If fire breaks out and catches in thorns, but sets threshing floors, stacked grain, or field on fire, he who kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man gives his neighbor money or goods to keep, but it is stolen out of the man's house, the thief shall pay double if he is found. But if the thief is not found, then the Lord of the house shall be brought before God, and he shall swear he played no wicked part with regard to any of his neighbor's deposit. For any kind of trespass, whether it concerns an ox, a donkey, a sheep, or clothing, or any alleged loss of whatever kind, the cause of both parties shall come before God, and he that is convicted by God shall repay double to his neighbor. If anyone gives his neighbor a donkey, an ox, a sheep, or an animal to keep, and it dies, is injured, or is taken, but no one knows it, then an oath of God shall be between them both, that he is not guilty with regard to the deposit, and the owner of the deposit shall accept this. Thus no compensation shall be made to him, but if in fact the deposit is stolen from him, he shall compensate the owner. But if it is torn to pieces by a beast, he shall bring it as evidence and make no compensation. If a man borrows anything from his neighbor, and it becomes injured or dies, the owner not being with it, he shall make compensation to the owner. But if its owner was with it, he shall not make compensation. If it was hired, it came for its hire. Moral laws. If a man entices a virgin who is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall surely pay the bride price for her to be his wife. But if her father utterly refuses to give her to him, he shall pay money to her father according to the bride price of virgins. You shall not permit a sorcerer to live. Whoever lies with an animal shall surely be put to death. He who sacrifices to any god except the Lord alone, he shall be put to death. You shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. You shall not afflict any widow or orphan. If you afflict them in any way, and they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath will become hot, and I will kill you with the sword. Your wives shall be widows, and your children orphans. If you lend money to any poor brother among you, you shall not be hard on him, or charge him interest. If you take your neighbor's garment as a pledge, you shall return it to him before the sun goes down. For that is his only covering, his only garment for covering his nakedness. What will he sleep in? So it will be, when he cries to me, I will hear him, for I am merciful. You shall not speak against gods, nor curse a ruler of your people. You shall not delay to offer the first of your threshing floor and fruit press. The firstborn of your sons you shall give to me. Likewise you shall do with your calf, your sheep, the donkeys. It shall be with its mother 7 days. On the 8th day you shall give it to me. Now you shall be holy men to me, and you shall not eat meat torn by wild animals in the field. You shall throw it to the dog. Justice, chapter 23. Now you shall not circulate a false report. Do not agree with the wicked man to be an unrighteous witness. You shall not follow a cry to do evil, nor join them so as to turn aside with the majority to pervert justice. You shall not show partiality to a poor man in his dispute. If you meet your enemy's ox or his donkey going astray, you shall surely bring it back to him again. If you see your enemy's donkey fallen beneath its load, you shall not walk away with it, but shall surely help him with it. You shall not pervert the judgment of your poor in his dispute. Keep yourself far from every unjust matter. Do not kill the innocent and the righteous, and do not justify the wicked for his gifts. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes and corrupts just pronouncements. Also, you shall not oppress a resident alien, for you know the heart of the resident alien, because you were resident aliens in the land of Egypt. Sabbath laws. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its produce, but in the 7th year you shall let it rest and lie fallow, that the poor of your people may eat, and what they leave the beasts of the field may eat. In like manner you shall do with your vineyard and your olive grove. 6 days you shall do your work, and on the 7th day you shall rest, that your ox and donkey may rest, and the son of your female servant and the stranger may be refreshed. 3 yearly feasts. Now in everything I said to you, be circumspect, and do not invoke the name of other gods, nor let it be heard from your mouth. Keep a feast to me 3 times a year. You shall keep the feast of unleavened bread. You shall eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded you at the time appointed in the month of the new grains. For in it you came out of Egypt. None shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruits of your labors, you sowed in the field, and in the feast of ingathering at the end of the year, when you gather in the fruits of your labors from the field. 3 times in the year all your males shall appear before the Lord your God. When I cast out the nations from before your face and expand your borders, you shall not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, nor shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until morning. The first of the first fruits of your land you shall bring into the house of the Lord your God. You shall not boil a lamb in its mother's milk. An angel of protection. Behold, I send my angel before your face to keep you in the way and to bring you into the land I prepared for you. Listen to him and obey his voice. Do not provoke him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. But if you will indeed obey my voice and do all I command you and keep my covenant, you shall be my special people above all nations. For the whole earth is mine, and you shall be a royal priesthood and a holy nation. You shall speak these words to the children of Israel, and you shall indeed obey my voice and do all I tell you. I will be an enemy to your enemies and an adversary to your adversaries. For my angel will go before you and bring you into the Amorites and Hittites and Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, and I will cut them off. You shall not bow down to their gods, nor serve them, nor do according to their works, but you shall utterly overthrow them and completely break down their sacred pillars. So you shall serve your God, and he will bless your bread, wine, and water, and I will take away sickness from you. No one shall suffer miscarriage or be barren in your land, and I will fulfill the number of your days. I will send my fear before you, and I will cause confusion among all the nations to whom you come, and will make all your enemies turn their backs to you. I will also send hornets before you, which shall drive out the Amorites, the Hivites, the Canaanites, and the Hittites from before you. I will not drive them out from before you in 1 year, lest the land become desolate, and the wild animals of the field become too numerous for you. Little by little I will drive them out from before you until you have increased and inherit the land. And I will set your bounds from the Red Sea to the Sea of the Philistines, and from the desert to the Euphrates River. For I will deliver the inhabitants of the land into your hand, and will drive them out from before you. You shall make no covenant with them, nor with their gods. They shall not dwell in your land, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their gods, it will surely be a stumbling block to you. Chapter 24. The covenant affirmed. Now he said to Moses, Come up to the Lord, you and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship from afar. Moses alone shall come near to God, but they shall not come near, nor shall the people go up with them. So Moses came and told the people all the words of God and all the ordinances, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words of God, the God spoke, we will do. Then Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, and he rose early in the morning and built an altar at the foot of the mountain, and 12 stones according to the 12 tribes of Israel. Then he sent young men of the children of Israel, who offered whole burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of calves to God. Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he poured on the altar. Then he took the book of the covenant and read in the hearing of the people. And they said, all the Lord said we will do, and be obedient. Moses then took the blood, sprinkled it on the people, and said, this is the blood of the covenant the Lord made with you according to all these words. Moses with God in Mount Sinai. After this, Moses went up, along with Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and the 70 of the elders of Israel, and they saw the place where God of Israel stood. Under his feet was, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone, and the appearance of heaven's firmament in its purity. All of Israel's chosen men, not one was missing. So they saw the place of God, and ate and drank. Then the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain, and be there, and I will give you tablets of stone, and the law and commandments I wrote, that you may teach them. So Moses arose with his assistant Joshua, and they went up to the mountain of God. But he said to the elders, wait here for us until we come back to you. Indeed, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man, that's Caleb ben Hur, Caleb. And Joshua was Nun, ben Nun. So Aaron and Hur are with you, and if any man has a difficulty, let him go to them. Then Moses and Joshua went up to the mountain, and the cloud covered the mountain. Now the glory of God descended on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. Then on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. The sight of the Lord's glory was like a burning fire on the top of the mountain before the children of Israel. So Moses went into the midst of the cloud and went up the mountain, and he was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. And now we go to the New Testament, Mark, chapter 7 and 8. Chapter 7, the traditions of the Pharisees. Then the Pharisees and some of the scribes came together to him, having come from Jerusalem. Now when they saw some of the disciples eat bread with defiled, that is, with unwashed hands, they found fault, for the Pharisees and all the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands in a special way, holding the tradition of the elders. When they come from the marketplace, they do not eat unless they wash, and there are many other things which they have received and hold, like the washing of cups, pitchers, copper vessels, and couches. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said to them, well did Isaiah prophesy to you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honors me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandments of God, you hold the tradition of men, the washing of pitchers and cups, and many other things you do. He said to them, all too well you reject the commandments of God, that you may keep your tradition. For Moses said, honor your father and your mother, and he who curses father and mother, let him be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, whatever profit you might have received from me is korban, that is, a gift to God, then you no longer let him do anything for his father or his mother, making the word of God to no effect through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such things you do. When he had called all the multitudes to himself, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. When he had entered a house, away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. So he said to them, "Are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods?" And he said, "What comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of men, proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornication, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man." A Gentile woman believes. From there he arose and went to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And he entered a house and wanted no one to know it, but he could not be hidden. For a woman whose daughter had an unclean spirit heard about him, and she came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Greek, a Syro-Phoenician by birth, and she kept asking him to cast the demon out of her daughter. But Jesus said to her, "Let the children be filled first, for it is not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs." And she answered and said to him, "Yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For this saying, go your way, the demon has gone out of your daughter." And when she had come to her house, she found the demon gone out and her daughter lying on the bed. The healing of a deaf man. Again, departing from the region of Tyre and Sidon, he came through the midst of a region of Decapolis to the Sea of Galilee. Then they brought to him one who was deaf and had an impediment in his speech. And they begged him to put his hand on him. And he took him aside from the multitude and put his finger in his ears. And he spat and touched his tongue. Then, looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." Immediately his ears were opened, and the impediment of his tongue was loosed, and he spoke plainly. Then he commanded them that they should tell no one, but the more he commanded them, the more widely they proclaimed it. And they were astonished beyond measure, saying, "He has done all these things well. He makes both the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." Chapter 8. Feeding the 4,000. In those days, a multitude being very great and having nothing to eat, Jesus called his disciples to him and said to them, "I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days. I have nothing to eat. And if I send them away hungry to their own houses, they will faint on the way, for some of them have come from afar." Then his disciples answered him, "How can one satisfy these people with bread here in the wilderness?" And he asked them, "How many loaves do we have?" And they said, 7. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks, broke them and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And they set them before the multitude. They also had a few small fish, and having blessed them, he said to set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 large baskets of leftover fragments. Now those who had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away, and immediately got into the boat with the disciples and came to the region of Dalmanutha. "Show us a sign." Then the Pharisees came out and began to dispute with him, seeking from him a sign from heaven, testing him. But he sighed deeply in his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Assuredly, I say to you, no sign shall be given to this generation." The leaven of the Pharisees. And he left them, and getting into the boat again, departed to the other side. Now the disciples had forgotten to take bread, and they did not have more than 1 loaf with them in the boat. Then he charged them, saying, "Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the leaven of Herod." And they reasoned among themselves, saying, "It's because we have no bread." But Jesus, being aware of it, said to them, "Why do you reason because you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive nor understand? Is your heart still hardened? Having eyes you do not see, and having ears you do not hear? And do you not remember when I broke the 5 loaves for 5,000, and how many baskets full of fragments did you take up?" And they said to him, 12. "Also, when I broke the 7 for the 4,000, "How many large baskets of fragments did you take up?" And they said, 7. So he said to them, "How is it that you do not understand?" A blind man healed. Then he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him, and begged him to touch him. So he took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes and put his hands on him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, "I see men like trees walking." Then he put his hands on his eyes again and made him look up. Then he was restored and saw everyone clearly. Then he sent him away to his house, saying, "Neither go into the town, nor tell anyone in the town." Peter's confession. Now Jesus and his disciples went out to the towns of Caesarea Philippi, and on the road he asked his disciples, saying to them, "Who do men say that I am?" So they answered, "John the Baptist, but some say Elijah, and others one of the prophets." And he said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Peter answered and said to him, "You are the Christ." Then he strictly warned them that they should tell no one about him. Jesus' first prophecy of his passion. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spoke this word openly, and then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But then he had turned around and looked at his disciples. He rebuked Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan, for you are not mindful of the things of God, but the things of men." When he had called the people to himself, with his disciples also, he said to them, "Whoever desires to come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and the gospel's will save it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, of him the Son of Man will also be ashamed when he comes in the glory of his Father with the holy angels." And we'll continue with chapter 9 of New Testament tomorrow in part 20. God bless you, and thank you for your support. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.